steel to a steel stop pin right there. So definitely very cool. This particular knife uses a radius lock face, which is what Strider used to use. Now Strider uses the flat lock face. You can subtly see it's a very slight radius. So we'll see how that works out as this knife wears in and things like that. However, this knife is making much more contact between the lock bar and the lock face as opposed to the Strider, which really just makes a pretty small contact point. This uses a bushing system. Benefit to the bushing system is you can crank that pivot down, you can Loctite it, leave it, set it, forget it, and you're always going to have a smooth knife. Downside is if you don't do it 100% perfect, you can get a little bit of play, which is what this knife has, just a tiny, tiny bit. It looks like it's more because both my hands are moving around. Oh, look at that, look at all that blade play. But really, you wouldn't be able to see it. That's just my hand, you know, moving. It's just a small, small click. I could take it apart, sand that down a little bit, and try to make it a little tighter, but I'm not going to. It doesn't matter. Whereas with the Strider, you can get it perfect where it's smooth and you have no blade play. See, even this one, I have it set up so it has a little bit of movement just because that's the smoothness I wanted it at. But you run the risk of, you know, it'll tighten up, or I mean, it'll loosen up, and you got to make sure to get it just perfect and set it. And so this is a lot more idiot friendly. You know, you don't have to worry about messing with your pivot. It's just tightened down all the way, and it's super smooth. No issues whatsoever with it. So definitely got to like the bushing system used in here. Both have bronze phosphorus washers, which is what I prefer, especially on a knife like this, which is meant for hard use, bad environments, and things like that. Just because, you know, there's no chance of the plastic or whatever else you're using kind of drying up and cracking and things like that. Let's do the, you know, the lock bar. We already talked about the titanium thickness. If you actually look at the cutout area, you can see that the Satu is a little bit thicker, so it does have a little bit more lock bar tension, which is kind of nice. There's no lock bar stabilizer on here. The pocket clip does somewhat act as one, but really the main defense is that it's hard to overextend. Just the amount of tension that's on it, it's really, I can't really even push it. I mean, unless I were to take my other hand and really crank on it. With just one hand, I'm not going to overextend it, which is kind of like my Sebenza, which actually is in my pocket here. There's not really too much of an issue of overextending because I can't actually, with one hand, I can't really overextend it. You know, the cutout is thick enough and there's enough tension that it's not necessary, which I think is cool. I think that is really, really cool. I used to think that if it didn't have the lock bar stabilizer, it was an automatic thumbs down. You know, and it was just that they didn't want to pay for it. But I now realize that it's really just not necessary in all knife designs. Only if you've got a really loose tension lock bar, like Hinderers, they have a very light tension, which is why a lot of them don't have a good detent, or a strong detent, sorry, not good, because some people prefer that. And why they're also part of the reason why they're so smooth, because you don't have that drag. And that's easily illustrated here. I mean, you can see if I open it here, see how you got to shake it to get it to fall open. But if I reduce that tension, it just falls open. So the only resistance on this blade that's making it slow down is this lock bar pushing on it. If this lock bar was not pushing on it, this blade would just flop around like nobody's business. So anyways, a little divergent there. Next up, let's do overall construction. This has the integrated backspacer, you know, obviously less parts, very, very strong. Full backspacer. This is kind of a partial flow-through design. You've got just a minimal backspacer here. Very well constructed. Everything just, man, just goes together like gangbusters on this thing. So love this knife. Very, very cool. Very cool indeed. Lanyard hole, much larger on the Satu, and you don't have the problem of the blade cutting through the lanyard hole, which Striders have. You know, and of course they recommend just putting it through the titanium side only, not all the way through. However, even when you do that, oftentimes you will slowly start fraying away at your lanyard. Luckily, I'm not the biggest lanyard fan. I do like Chris Reeves lanyards, just the way they work. In fact, I love Chris Reeves lanyards, so I do have a lanyard on both my Chris Reeves, but other knives, not so much. Pocket clip. This circles around the lanyard hole, has 3 screws. Actually uses Phillips screws, which is interesting. Everything else is Torx on here. This uses Torx all around. It has a single screw, and then it has a bent tab that goes inside of a hole, which is pretty cool. One less screw to mess with, and it's also a large screw. I prefer the Strider clip. It allows, see how it pokes out more? It allows you to go into your clothing a lot easier, and then you've also got more space back here for thicker clothes to go into, whereas the Satu is very flat and you don't quite get the ability to go in. But I mentioned before that I reduced some of the tension, and now it's working very, very nicely. As far as centering and fit and finish goes, I'd actually have to give it to the Satu, except for the edge. However, I've gotten Striders that don't have a perfect edge either, but you know, the Satu is definitely a little bit more far from perfect. But the fit and finish out of box was just great. I've kind of dinged it up a little bit. If you noticed, when I was sharpening, I kind of hit the choil here, took a little bit of the, or not the choil, but took a little bit of the black coating off of it, and I've been carrying it a few times, so a few marks, but out of the box it was flawless. No machining marks except for the milling lines right there. Somebody had mentioned in another video that they thought that was just the texture of the G10. I assure you it's not. You can see the machining marks. They used a very small ball mill, and you can just see all the lines right there. But no big deal. I mean, I think it looks cool actually. But the centering is perfect, detent is perfect. Just a really very nicely constructed knife. But of course, the Strider can't beat the Strider. The original beefy hard use knife right there. As far as warranty goes, I'm not quite sure on the Grayman. I know what they claim. Basically, their warranty sounds great. They do free sharpenings. You send it in, they'll sharpen it up for you. I don't know if you want them to, but they will. And also, it sounds like they'll pretty much take care of you, unless it's an obvious stupid thing you did. Sounds like they'll take care of you. As far as the lock bar wearing out, I have no idea what or if they will do anything for you. They really just haven't been out long enough. They've only been out I think this maybe a year and a half, their first folder. So definitely not enough time to get the kind of wear issues that would necessitate sending it in for the lock bar. So verdict's still out on that. The Strider, however, is tried and true. If you need service, just send it in. They'll fix you up, get it back out to you, you're good to go. Price point wise, the SMF will run you about, depending on the option you get, just for the standard Satu, about $100 more for the Strider. S30V, unless you get the CPM 154 like this. So more or less you're getting the same materials. However, this is $100 cheaper, and it is larger if that's what you're into. I think they both look great aesthetically. I love the Strider look, but I also like the Satu look. I think they're just both really cool knives. Alright guys, take it easy. Sorry this video went so long. I wasn't planning on it, but have a good day. I'll talk to you later.